welcome to another episode of Side Quest Podcast, the unofficial podcast of Fitocracy. If you're not following me on Twitter, check me out at SideQuestFM. You can also find me on Instagram at the same SideQuestFM. You can head over to Facebook and you can like the podcast there, SideQuest Podcast. Just put that in the search bar. It'll take you right to the page. Put updates up when I have new guests who come on the show every week, and then things that they post on their sites as well that I find really intriguing. You can also check out the website at sidequestfitness.com. You can read blog posts that I put up there. Check out my coaching profile as well if you're interested in that. And you can listen to every single podcast that I've ever had out there on the website. I have a great guest for you today. He comes from lovely, lovely Australia. So there's a bit of a time difference here. And it looks like it's dark and evening there, so I don't want to keep you too long.
No, you're right, mate.
But he is a personal trainer and fitness consultant there in Australia, and he has a great site called I'm going to totally butcher it. We the Powerful. Well, I want to say We the People, but that's just because I'm American and that's where my brain went for some reason. But We the Powerful, Matt Cordery. Matt, how you doing?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Probably need to go get a cup of coffee because it's a little early here in the States.
Always.
Oh yeah. But so what time is it there? Is it like 10?
It's 10 o'clock at night. Yeah.
Man, it's
crazy.
It's so crazy to think that like we get so used to, and this is really true for the U.S. Like at least on the East Coast, you get so used to being in the East Coast, and everyone over like in Pacific time is like, "Hey, douchebags! Like we exist over here. Like we're 3 hours behind you, you know." But everything's yeah. So it's interesting to think that somewhere else in the world, you know, there's other things like. Because you get so used to just your one time in your area, so
yeah, internet's a magical thing.
It is. It's even crazier now that like customer service things go worldwide, and peak times in the U.S. are at like the middle of the night for parts of the world where customer service departments are.
Yeah.
Cool. So welcome to the show, Matt. Travis Paulin introduced me to you, and I love your site. I love your style and your geek flair that you have. It resonates with me as the giant Uber nerd that I am.
Definitely.
So definitely wanted to get you on the show. So how did you get into fitness? I think a lot of people probably have similar stories, but like I said, most of the time we get caught up in our own time zone. We get caught up in our own culture. And, were you kind of a chunky kid growing up, or were you an athlete who just continued to kind of stay, in the realm of athletics and sport?
Well, I started karate from a very young age. I was doing karate from the time I was 4 up until the time I was sort of 15, 16. And then I floated out of the fitness sort of thing. Like I got over karate. I'd been doing it for so long. And other things happened. I was a teenager, so other hobbies came around. And then I think when I was about 18 or 19, I moved away from home and made all these new friends, and they were very into the gym. So I think the first time I went into a gym, I was 18 or 19, and I went in, and it was just with my mates, and I was only there just to hang out with them a little bit more sort of thing. And we just did your standard like 3x12 bodybuilder split and lots of bro science and lots of chatter. And then I think maybe like it was every few weeks I would go to the gym, let alone like a few times a week. And yeah, it just sort of grew from there. Something I started doing a little bit more. I never really got into the bodybuilding side of things. So I was just lucky enough to come across a few good coaches or mentors or guys that would just give you the time of day and introduce me to a completely new side of fitness, the sort of the strength and performance and that sort of stuff. So yeah, from then I just sort of grew and grew. And then as I met more and more coaches that sort of took the time to invest in other people, that's when I started to want to get more involved into it, as opposed to just train to get big and handsome.
So instead of just being, sort of selfish and for yourself, you wanted to give back to others.
I still have that side of it. But
well, I mean, we all do. We all do. Like I was telling, I'm interning at a gym right now for a few more days, and I was telling the trainer last night, I was like, I struggle with as I'm coming out of this reverse diet from like a really deep cut, and I got in really good shape. I got to single digit body fat. I used a electrical impedance there last night. It was like 8.3%. I'm like, all right, cool. And as I start to kind of come out of this and I'm adding more food in, a part of my brain goes, I want to get strong again. Let's get like ridiculously strong. Nah, let's just have an excuse to eat more ice cream. Like, so there's a selfish part for myself as well. And I think we all kind of struggle with that at times.
Letting the behavior dictate the goal as opposed to the goal dictate the behavior.
Exactly. But and I have to say, for me right now, like I turned 29 in a couple weeks. So another part of me is like, well, you're gonna, and I mean like the end all be all. Like I guess when I was younger, I was like 30 is old. Like when you get to 30, you start writing a will. So part of me is like, well, maybe I should just like go all out, see how strong and powerful, and train like a real athlete for another year. I don't know. So I don't have I have too many goals that I want to focus on.
Definitely.
Which happens all the time. So you have some great articles about goals and getting those things down yourself. And you have one article that I really, really like, talking about like weaknesses and how so many of us don't. And I know some of these articles may be old, but right now I'm working on an article about the hamstrings because a majority of people, that's a weakness. It's a weakness because we sit on our butts 99% of the time. And it's a weakness because when you go in the gym, you just squat and everyone, you do some leg curls and that's about it.
And it's also one of the muscles that you don't see in the mirror as well. So all of a sudden there's not that reinforcement and feedback. Right.
It's like the arms. You want to train the biceps, but you forget if you want big arms, you got to train the triceps.
Yeah, definitely.
So what weakness did you really avoid training for the longest time? But you were like, you know what? I don't want to do it. Because I'll be honest, mine's calves. I hate them.
I don't do it. It's just not even on my radar. I hide behind because I train for strength predominantly.
Yeah.
That's not going to help me squat. So, but I still don't see that as a weakness. That's still I got to sort that out in therapy. But I think one of my biggest weaknesses was just the lack of mobility stuff. You almost need a coach to force you to do those things. It's not even the stuff that you're not good at. It's just the stuff that you couldn't be bothered to do yourself.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
So when you talk about mobility, we're talking about like foam rolling, stretching. Like, did you basically just go into the gym and just like get under the bar and start going?
Yeah, and it was a bit of sort of a lack of knowledge, and then at the same time it was I didn't like, you just go in and do it. That's what you do. Like you jump on the treadmill for 5-10 minutes, and that was on a day that you were conscious about it. But then other days you just go in and pump out. I'm so surprised that I didn't injure myself worse in those early years. But
so what do you do now to warm up? Because I admit I spend. This is for myself. With clients, I spend plenty of time, warming up clients. For myself, I give myself 2 songs on my playlist to get my warm up.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a good idea.
Which is 8 to 9 minutes sometimes, unless it's like a punk rock song, and then I have to go 3 because that's like 2 minutes.
Yeah. Or some trance track that goes for half an hour or something.
Oh God! Like, I'm like, can this end? So what do you do now? What have you found that works for yourself and that you've been able to apply to clients in keeping the stretching relatively short but effective?
Yeah, definitely. So I might be one of the few guys that has sort of moved into the sort of functional fitness realm and then completely gone back the other way. Like, it's foam rolling is one of those things that I think it's the same as anything in the fitness industry. There's big waves and twos and fro's with everything, like big trends. People would jump on it too much, and then they'll go back the other way and go, oh no, it doesn't work at all. It's just finding that median. So Tony Gentilcore came out to Australia for a seminar, and he had a good talk about how it always seems to be the guys that spend the hour, half an hour, or the majority of their training session working on their mobility. They're always the ones that seem to get hurt or end up with the little niggles and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So for myself, it varies. Obviously, there's the days when you go in first thing in the morning and you're cold and you just feeling achy. You might spend 15, 20 minutes rolling out, doing your dynamic stuff, squatting, hinging, and then just some basics, even some static stretching, depending on what you're doing. And then there's the other days where you might jump on the roller for a minute or two and then, jump straight in because you're feeling good. I think it takes it's up to you to know whether you should be doing your mobility stuff today, you should be emphasizing a certain thing, or just going through the motions.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I'm getting ready to run a boot camp. I got hired to be a trainer for a theater this summer. They're doing a production of A Few Good Men, so they got to look like they belong in the military.
Definitely.
The warm up is the one thing I'm really honing in on, because it's at like 6:30 in the morning. It's so early. And that's like the rest of the program. I'm not scared about, but it's the warm up and the cooling down that I'm like, oh man, it's got to be good. It's got to hit everything. Yeah.
Joe DeFranco does some good stuff. Like he even used Limber 11, and he's got this 7 as well. And that's pretty good for a group setting, I find.
Okay, cool. So usually how I run the podcast, if you're unfamiliar, is I go through old articles or whatever people have written and get questions. Read your about page to learn a little about who you are, and then let you talk about it. And then whatever happens and we chat. And you mentioned, that you started to surround yourself, with people as you kind of got into fitness and started to read more. And you just mentioned Tony Gentilcore, who's a great resource, and Joe as well. But who inspired you originally? Like, who really got you fired up and inspired you to go full time with this?
Probably. There's a guy called Shannon Bachevsky. He's also from Ballina, and he's the first real coach that I ever trained under. And just from going from a commercial gym setting and just into it, he initially was running like a tiny little studio. There was probably 30 of us there, and just the way that he conducted himself and the way that he ran his sessions, and it was like nothing I'd ever experienced before. All of a sudden I was working with a coach as opposed to like a PT with a clipboard and stuff. And so training with him was like, that was when I was like, yeah, this is something I can see myself doing. Whereas I've never seen myself just at a gym doing drop sets and forcing clients to spew up and stuff. So that's probably the like one of the main inspirations. And then through him, I started reading. Like, I always love reading. So added like initially Tony Gentilcore, they've got a lot to do with each other. And then DeFranco, and then Dan John, guys like that, Cressy, all of them. And then as I started to get more so into powerlifting, Louis Simmons and all those old school guys, and then some of the young guys coming up now. Greg Knuckles is a massive fan of Greg Knuckles. So yeah.
Oh yeah, Greg. I love reading all of Greg's stuff. Sometimes I feel like I'm not smart enough. And I told him that. I was like, I don't feel like I'm smart enough to read your stuff. Like, I don't. That's all right. That's cool. All right, so we're going to do some fun questions, and we're going to go back to talking about training because you sent me a few of your articles to kind of look over, and you had a review of Ultron. So I got to know what you thought about it because I have not yet. I've thought about putting up movie reviews when I go see stuff, but I don't really like. I basically just go see superhero movies because I am cheap, and I'm like, I'll wait till Netflix.
Yeah, okay.
And then if I really want to see it when it comes on Netflix, I'll watch it. 9 times out of 10, I'm distracted and end up watching something else. But I do go see my Marvel movies, and I will probably see Star Wars 12 times the same day. So what do you think?
Yeah, it was awesome. Like, I love it. Like, the amount of money that they put into those movies, I don't think you can not enjoy it on some level. And I love going to the cinema. I love the experience. That's sort of my happy place. I do it at least once a week, regardless of what it is. Like, go to the movies, have my popcorn, have a frozen Coke, depending on the day and what I'm doing with my diet and stuff. But it's such pure cinema, the Marvel movies. And it's just the way they interconnect. And then you got to wait past the credits for the special little trailer at the end. And it's just, it's an experience. So, yeah, I love it.
Cool. Are you a Marvel guy? Are you a DC guy? Like, what did you kind of
we like because we don't really do the comic book thing in Australia, so we've always had the heroes, but we've never had the culture maybe surrounding it as much, or I didn't anyway. So definitely Marvel's killing it at the moment. So
yeah, I find that interesting that you guys don't have the culture, and yet like 2 of the biggest like Marvel stars are from Australia.
Well,
and at least one of them is one that like all of us like weightlifters are like, oh my god, I want to be like Hugh Jackman. Like, I want to be Wolverine.
Yes. I wrote a thing about how it's unfair that Hugh Jackman can deadlift 180 or whatever he was doing at the time because he has adamantium bones, and that was pretty well received. And I think Chris Hemsworth is actually from where he's not from here, but he's living here at the moment. He's from Balna, so it's a little sort of rural area of Australia. So pretty cool.
Cool. So I got to ask, I see the tattoo, and when listeners hear this, they won't be able to see it, but I got to ask, what is it, and what's the story behind it?
So it's Prometheus, and I'll see if I can get it in the photo.
Nice.
So it's Prometheus. If in the it's Greek mythology, basically he was said to have stolen fire from the gods and given it to mankind as a gift, and then that was something that allowed us to evolve rapidly and grow beyond walking around in the dark and stuff. And because he did that, the gods were very unhappy, and Zeus chained him to a rock in the middle of the ocean. And every night an eagle eats his liver, and every day an eagle eats his liver, and it grows back every night. And because he's a god, and so I don't know. Like, it's always been a pretty sort of poignant story, and just unexpected consequences of the best intentions, I guess.
Was there a reason, like, because Prometheus is it is an interesting story. He steals the fire from the gods, gives it to mankind. Was there a significance for you? Like, that fire was a knowledge, or that fire is the internet?
It's very it's very sort of struggling with the words. It's sort of advocating humanity, like he was for humanity in a time when, the gods were never meant to be sort of so supportive of humanity, if that makes sense. And it does correlate very much with science and intellect and stuff like that. He's a sort of I don't know how to say it. Sorry, patron god of science, and
Okay, all right. I grew up loving Greek mythology until I found Norse mythology. Then I was like, oh my god, people like fight. Yeah. I mean, Greek mythology is violent. It's not pretty. But good God, it just seemed like every story involving Thor or like Loki or Odin or all of them involved like drinking, sex, and fighting.
It's like
basically what we call it in America. All right, so let's go back to a little chatting about fitness. One of the things that I really suck with, and I guess mostly because for the longest time I worked in an office, and going to the gym was like my fortress of solitude. Like I wanted to go there. It was the only thing I looked forward to every day. I struggle with like the idea of deloading.
Definitely.
Even though I know it is very, very important. And there comes times where like I start to see more articles about it, and I'm like, I feel like this is the universe telling me something. And I'm like, no, go fuck yourself, universe. I'm going to do this. I'm not going to listen to you. So why is it, convince me why it's important, and why and when in a training like period of a year I should implement it?
Yeah, definitely. It's the same as with the mobility stuff. There's not always a set time that you should do it, and it's sort of one of those things with clients. It's always hard to judge because they're the same. They never want to slow down. Like they get in there and they want to make the most of it. So there's a few different things to sort of consider. There's sort of are you sleeping a lot more than usual? Are you waking up tired? Are you like getting sick maybe, like you're getting a cold easily, or you get a cold that you can't shake, or even just in terms of your performance in the gym, you're not hitting numbers that you should consistently hit. There's a few different ways that you can measure it as well. I know Dan John talks about a finger tap test, which you can get an app for it, basically because it's so reliant on neurological factors. If you go in one day and you're consistently hitting 60 taps in a minute, for the sake of argument, and then all of a sudden that drops down to 40 taps, there's obviously something going on there. Your central nervous system's struggling, or for whatever reason. Or there's heart rate variability training. There's all different kinds of tests that you can use and implement into your training to sort of judge your recovery.
Okay, I got you. I kind of like I'm going to have to see if there's an app for this tap test. I took a deload week in like December. The gym that I trained at was closed for a week, and the one where I was working, the bank that I worked at, they had a gym, but it went up to like 50-pound dumbbells. And I was like, I'll go in and I'll do like 25, 30 pounds just to stay some sort of active and not take a full week off. And I mean, I don't really know if it was 100% necessary. It might have been, and it may have been beneficial. It may not have been, but even then I still struggle with being like, I want to do more. But
I know a lot of guys, they won't take the full proper deload. They might just change up the objective. So instead of like, if for a powerlifter, they might do, there's two schools of thought with powerlifting. If it's off season, they might just change it up and do a hypertrophy week, or they might do, so if they're training strength consistently, they're starting to fatigue, slowing down a bit. They just, instead of taking that full week off or having a 50% week, they'll just do more of a hypertrophy type workout. But saying that, fatigue masks fitness. So I've got one of my clients he's a powerlifter, and that final week of the 12-week linear periodization block, that's when the magic happens. Like he can go into that 11th week and he'll be struggling to hit numbers, have that week off, and he goes into a competition and hits PVs easily. So that's really where the deload, sometimes it's a hassle, but then if you can go out the other side and hit some pretty solid PVs, it makes it all worthwhile.
Okay. I see that, I guess my question is this, for trainers and coaches like us, how do we, you mentioned, some things that Dan John mentioned, but how do you do it for yourself? Like if you're going in and you're still enjoying your workouts and you're sleeping well and you're not maybe the only thing you notice is, say you're in a calorie deficit because you're trying to lose some fat and you're just a little more tired from workouts because obviously you're in a deficit. Like, how do you know? Like, how do you know for yourself? Because that's something I need to know for me. Like, how do I figure it out?
I'm the last person to know. Like, it'll be, I'm the same. Like, that's what a coach is for. Like, everyone needs a coach, I think, whether it's an online coach or just someone that you train with, or you don't. It doesn't necessarily have to be someone you pay. But I'm the exact same, mate. Like, I'm one of the worst at it as well. So, it gets to the point where you either take the time off or you scale it back, or just something will go wrong. So if you still consist, like I think that's the biggest thing that with people that get wrong with deloads is they think it needs to be every 4 weeks or it needs to be every 12 weeks or whatever. It doesn't have to be. It's just every now and then you've got to hit the brakes or else the brakes are going to hit you, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point. Would something like even just body weight, maybe just doing some push-ups, and like, is that acceptable for a deload just to kind of stay? Like, a lot of people probably use it for vacation. Like, they go on holiday, they use that time to deload. Or you do something stupid like me and go on your honeymoon and gain 17 pounds because you eat all of the food in Scotland.
Completely worth it.
Oh yeah, totally worth it. It's totally worth it.
Yeah.
I should have come back and got right back on my cut, and I probably would have dropped fat like crazy.
Yeah,
but I didn't.
Yeah, that rebound. That's a good one. Just change up the goalpost, do something different. Like, I'm a big I use a lot of body weight stuff in my training because I enjoy it. It's because it does trying to get some monotonous sometimes. So you've always got to find those things to offset it. Like, if you like using kettlebells, just do a week of kettlebells, or like more kettlebell body weight sort of stuff. Just give your body a bit of a rest from sort of that real heavy grinding stuff. But at the same time, if you don't need deload, don't deload. No, excuse me.
No, you're fine. You're good. All right, so let's go to one more thing, because this one is something that somehow I've gotten really good at doing, mostly because I eat the same thing every week, which can get sort of boring, but I also meal plan, so that helps. And I now know, like, I have points of attack. Like, I know where to go. I don't go anywhere else in the grocery store. And you have an article, which is true, and a lot of people have written about this, about how grocery stores and even like just like convenience stores, like a quick little bodega on the corner or whatever, they're designed to get you to buy stuff impulsively. Like, they put the milk at the back, they put the bread at the back, or they put it in the middle where you have to go past all of this stuff brightly colored with like flowers and dancing, gnomes or whatever, trying to get you to buy their product. And now even in the US, like, everywhere you go, it's like healthy, health,
free, gluten free,
yeah. I mean, everywhere. Before you can even get to the beer, I mean the aisle. Yeah, because that's where I'm going.
The necessities.
Which is now funny here in the States, because more grocery stores are having to put the like crappy beer further and further down and the good expensive beer closer. And I'm like, I'm okay with this. I'm okay with that. You can keep the Bud Light down at the back. So what impulse buy at a store is the most tempting for you? Because for me, if I see an Almond Joy and it's like buy one, get one free, I'm buying it. Like, it's going to happen.
Yeah. I'm so susceptible to those impulse buys. Like, if it's bright, I'm like, oh, well, I need it. I've got to have it. Like, if it's 2 for 1, for example, like at the service station or something, like, I can't afford not to purchase that in this economy. So, whatever's the cheapest. No, as you said, there's the Grew and Transfer. It's a multi-million-dollar industry. Advertising is massive. People sort of that's their job, to get you to purchase things. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, they're not forcing you to buy products, but they just you can get most of your grocery shopping done without even going down most of the aisles. So do a bit quick ring around the store. You hit the veggies, hit the dairy, if you know, like, not even that, if that's not your style. Meat, veg, get out of there. But yeah, it's a science. So
yeah, I tell people my rule is, it's easy to say this here in the States, but I treat it like a racetrack or a NASCAR track. They drive in a circle, and all you have to do is drive in a circle. You start when you go in, and the finish line is getting out. You get your veggies. You stay on the outside. Yep. Get your veggies, get your meat, get your cheese and your dairy. If you're going to do that, go grab some frozen stuff like frozen vegetables, just to have should your broccoli go bad, or some frozen fruit as well, and keep that stocked because it's fairly cheap and easy to put in smoothies or steam real quick. And then you come back to the checkout line and you get out. The only thing you ever dash down the center for is hot sauce, and that's it.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. It is hard. I think most people, they don't even, like, most people know what they need to eat. It's just even just having someone to tell them to say, like, come on, you know what you need to eat. Like, there's no exact meal that you, like, there's no exact foods that you should be eating. You just need to make a better choice most of the time, or even some of the time. And that's what I try and sort of convey, is those tiny little changes.
Yeah, and I think that's the hardest thing is you say make a better choice, and then the marketers get into it, and they're like, "This is a better choice," and I'm like, "But it's not really a better." Like, if I go to a restaurant and they're like, "Oh, this is a healthy meal at like 800 calories," well, not that 800 calories is bad, but sometimes they market that stuff, or you see stuff like, "Oh, it's vegetarian, so it must be good." Except a vegetarian burger could have like 1,500 calories, and I could eat 5 Snickers bars. I think I'd rather eat 5 Snickers bars.
That's the biggest thing that I'm finding at the moment with as you said, that all the health consciousness of people. Like, people want to make right choices with their food, but if they're constantly being bombarded by good foods and bad foods and stuff like that, it's very easy to make a misinformed choice, just simply because if they're being told gluten-free is healthy, then all of a sudden they don't have to worry about calories or how it fits into the rest of their meals or the fat, carbs and stuff like that. And it's so hard to say that a single food on its own isn't a good or bad choice. It depends on on your food for that day and for the week and where you're at as a person and your health. And that's the biggest thing that I'm finding now. That's probably one of my biggest things as a coach at the moment, is conveying that.
I get the same thing from people. They're like, "Oh, but peanuts are good, right?" Well, yeah, peanuts are good, but look at the serving size. Like, the saddest thing, it's the most depressing. If you actually put out a serving size of peanut butter or almond butter or whatever, like, on a scale, it's so small, but people can finish like half a bottle of it. We it's healthy, and we think if we just eat whatever of it and we're going to be fine. And you're right. Like, those foods, there aren't good, bad foods. I mean, there are bad foods that you probably don't want to eat. But it comes down to, eating the serving sizes, but sometimes you don't realize just how small that size is. And it can be frustrating because you're like, but I want to eat more almonds. But
there's actually a funny story. One of my friends messaged me. It was like, it was late at night. She was like, "Oh, I'm hungry, but I don't want to have a meal. Like, what's a good snack that I could have before bed?" And I just sort of said, "Oh, well, really small serving of carrots and peanut butter," or something like that. Celery and peanut butter. She's like, "Okay, yeah, cool." And then all of a sudden, she messaged me the next day and I was like, "Oh, what did you have for lunch?" And she's like, "Oh, I had peanut butter and something else." And I was like, "Oh, that was like a snack because you didn't want to have a meal." Like, still have your meals, have your lean protein with every meal, and like, eat more for your main meals, and then don't get hungry. That's a good snack, but we don't want to be having too many snacks. Like, it's just because it's very hard to convey that whole idea of where everything fits into a diet.
Well, and that's something that I noticed where I worked at. Like, I worked in a corporate office, so people are always bringing in donuts or baking cookies or doing this or doing that.
Yeah,
and then I would hear people, talk about eating healthy or doing this or doing that, behind me, and snacking can put on it's like buying a Frappuccino every day at Starbucks. If you buy the Frappuccino every day and that's like $4, you're like, well, why don't I ever have any money? Because you're buying Frappuccinos every day. Well, why are you gaining weight? Well, how much are you snacking? Like if you're having a mid-morning snack and then you're having an afternoon snack and then you're having a snack before bed, like the calories of those could possibly be 1 to 2 meals, depending on what it is that you're snacking on. Yeah. And 9 times out of 10, most people aren't going to snack on carrots and celery or spinach.
Exactly.
Or, peppers. Like I know the biggest thing here in the States now is like people love hummus. And I had a friend of mine tell me that this girl that he was dating was telling him, he was seeing this girl, that she was telling him that even in like Israel, like where that hummus is from, that even there, they're like, they will make jokes at people like, oh, you're eating hummus, you're going to have to go to the gym. Like it's not a health food.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely.
So what, because I'm not really familiar with Australian cuisine. What is a food there that many people consider healthy, but might not actually be, but a lot of people really love?
There's nothing specifically, but it's just that the gluten-free, low carb, low fat, like low fat especially, not so much anymore, but it's just the buzzwords that there's so many articles and stuff that they read, and they see these buzzwords. You could say anything, low fat, 99% fat free, and they instantly associate that with health, and therefore I can eat as much of this as I want. And so it could be anything. Like there's a few good videos about how like muesli and granola and stuff like that, you can have a tiny bit of granola or is equal to so many little Maltesers or whatever it is. And it's so true, but it's very hard to convey that fact when there's so much information out there dealing with these sort of fringe studies on certain foods that may or may not have negative effects in decades of time, which is so just stuff like that.
Have you guys also gotten, because here in the States it's slightly laughable at times, but have you guys also gotten the like protein packs, protein, like have you noticed that like more things are starting to promote the protein? And even then it's like protein pack 7 grams, but you flip it over and like 7 grams of protein with 14 grams of fat. That's not protein packed.
Yeah, it seems at times it just seems ridiculous. You don't know how to get away with it, but it's just one of those things. I think it's one of the things that has always been around, and it's always been a struggle, and it probably will always be around to some degree. That's advertising versus health, I guess.
True. I mean, a company's always trying to make a profit, so they use buzzwords and words that sound fancy and smart and health to you, and then market that to you. I'm worried that that's going to happen with protein as well, that people are going to be like, oh, protein, I got to have more protein. But you have to realize it doesn't matter if it's fats, it doesn't matter if it's carbs, it doesn't matter if it's protein. If you overeat the calories that your body needs, you could eat nothing but protein. You overeat protein, I mean, you're probably going to have some stomach aches, but your body will store it. It will store it as fat. It takes a lot of energy for your body to do that. So you might have to eat a lot more protein than most people, but your body will store it. Like that's just, if it can't get rid of it and you eat too much of it, that's just what's going to happen. And that's what I worry, is that yet again, protein is becoming sort of like, the hot thing on the market now. And one, it's going to make protein powder a lot more expensive. And two, it could make actual meat a lot more expensive. But as much meat as we throw out, like that's the thing that amazes me, is that if we actually and I think might be true for a good portion of the world. If we spent, I took a health class starting in 6th grade. From 6th grade until my sophomore year of college, I had a health class every year. How in the fuck did I not learn about basic health? Like, why do I need over 12 years of a class that was the same crap that I never really took to heart? Like, if we could revamp all of that and say, look, here's formulas you can use to figure out your basic, food budget for a day. Here's how fats work here. And I know it's always changing, but we have a basic idea. We have nutritionists selling books all the time. Like, why don't we educate that? Because if we educate that and then we go, okay, well, you only need this much food, well, then maybe we won't waste as much food, or maybe we would have more food. Like,
so true. It's like, I suppose it's argument with everything. Like, you finish high school, no algebra, don't know how to eat, don't know how to cook, don't know how to pay taxes, but algebra and what happened at the Battle of Thermopylae. Like, it doesn't. It's interesting, but what do you do? But it's not like that's one of the biggest things with in regards to the obesity epidemic. Like, it does seem ridiculous. It's like the top three out of the top 5 leading causes of death are from like being sedentary and obesity, like generally. And it's so why aren't we making more of an effort in schools? I think it's starting to happen now, and it's mostly concentrated on, I think, physical activity, but there's got to be that nutritional advice as well, that nutritional knowledge.
Yeah, no, I think I agree. I mean, I guess it's just, I don't know. I honestly, I don't know. I don't want to think that I have some magic answer, because I don't, because
that's right.
It's hard. Well, because it's hard to talk about, nutrition and food with clients, because, they want to feel, everyone wants to feel like they have a good understanding. And then when they sort of get a little more educated sometimes, and even myself, when I get educated on something that I thought I knew, I kind of feel guilty. I feel like, wow, how could I not know that? Like, you feel like you sort of betrayed yourself in a way. And I think that's something a lot of people have to struggle with is, they want to feel like they're eating right. And then that, they want to blame something else other than themselves. And it's hard to take that self-responsibility.
I think a lot of, like, I've read a few times, lots of different coaches say it. They say, if you look back at the programs you were writing 6 months ago, if you don't look back at the programs you were writing 6 months ago and shake your head, you're doing it wrong. And I'm like, oh, thank fuck for that. Like, some of the, like, you look back and it's just like, what was I thinking? But that was that's the choices that you made with the information that you had at that time. I think the problem at the moment with a lot of the nutrition stuff is, and it comes from a good place, the same as most of the other stuff, is that I'm addicted to sugar and stuff, and those sort of ideas that take ownership away from food. It's very easy to blame someone else and go, oh, well, it's not my fault that I'm a little bit overweight. I'm addicted to sugar. And it's like, well, you're not really addicted to sugar. Like, it's not heroin. Like, you enjoy having food.
Not heroin.
Yeah. So
I mean,
I'm addicted to lots of things that I enjoy, but it's just, I can go without, I think.
Right. It is interesting because, and I have quoted the study before. There is that one study that shows that, sugar sort of triggers, a similar area of the brain as drugs. But I mean, lots of things do that. Like, I'm not going to lie, I was addicted to playing video games for a very, very long time. I still enjoy video games. I play video games. But I mean, like, I was unemployed. I had nothing else to do. Like,
vicious circle.
Yeah. And I think that happens to a lot of people. You find something that releases some endorphins and sense of happiness, and you like that feeling, so you keep that feeling. Cool. Well, let's do a couple more fun questions to wind down the show. What track is on your playlist that is your guilty pleasure that you would shamefully admit to others you listen to while you work out?
That I would admit or that I wouldn't admit?
That you would never admit, but you will admit on the show that you have on your playlist.
It's probably not even that shameful. There's a band in Australia. I don't know if they've made it. They probably haven't made it to America, but they're called the Beards, and they're just three dudes with mad beards. And one of the songs is what's it called? So you should have sex with a bearded man. And so I used to have a big beard, and I remember one time that I was running. This is ages ago. I don't run anymore because I'm powerlifting now. Any excuse not to run. And I was coming up to the hill. Song came on, and I just burnt the hill. Like just sprinted up it just because I got pumped up.
I'm gonna have to Google it. That calls themselves the Beards. It has has a song called "You Should." Yes, done. I'm listening to that. That sounds epically awesome.
Do yourself a favor.
Okay, so if you could be any superhero in the world and you could have any superpower, what superpower would that be?
It's a good one. I wouldn't be the Hulk. I think the reason that the Hulk movies never work is because it's not a hero that people can
connect with.
Yeah, see themselves being. I like Iron Man. He's pretty witty, billionaire. Doesn't hide as well. He's all open and stuff. Some definite character defects, which I can relate to definitely. Probably Iron Man.
Okay.
Or at least Tony Stark. Maybe previous. The suit.
I like it. I like it. I do have to say I like how being the sort of comic book nerd that I am, I love the casting of Robert Downey Jr. because the past that Robert Downey Jr. had as like a playboy drunk is exactly what Tony Stark was in the comics in the 70s. But I like how that they didn't really they only hinted at the fact that he drinks a little bit, and then had that fight with War Machine, after getting drunk. Because in the comics, he becomes so dependent upon alcohol that War Machine has to put the armor on to fight his nemesis. Yeah. I like where they've gone with this. I enjoy watching the films and seeing where they're going. I do have to say the only thing with Ultron that I expected a little more of was a little more fighting between Iron Man and Cap. Like if you're gonna do the Civil War, which is Team Cap.
That's coming next, isn't it?
It's next year. So, and then in July we get Ant-Man, which I don't know.
Interesting.
I love Paul Rudd, so I'm like, all right, I like the casting choice, but Ant-Man is I don't know. We'll see what they do with it. I have no clue how it's going to work. I wasn't really sure how Guardians of the Galaxy would work either because that's such a weird. I think the thing that's worked so well for Marvel is they have picked heroes that are easy to identify with. Captain America is a wimpy teen who goes through a big change. We all are very inundated with World War II stories in our culture. So we can connect with that. We connect with Iron Man because he's just a rich dude with a lot of toys. Same reason we connect with Batman. And the rest of them all right, fine.
No real superhero, no superpowers either. Just normal people. They don't
normal people in extraordinary circumstances. Whereas DC is hey, we're all gods with superpowers, except for this guy whose parents got murdered and he became in Batman. That's the only thing. That's why people connect with Batman because you're oh, his mom and dad, they got murdered and he was an orphan. I can feel for him. Oh, your planet blew up and you're invincible. I don't really know how.
Dang.
But anyways, so Matt, I've had a great time. If people want to know more about you, where can they find you online? Where can they check out your blog and your coaching and what you do on the internet?
Okay, so I've got my Facebook. It's Matt Cordery. I'm happy for you to jump on that. I owe so much of what I do to Facebook. I know people sort of talk about the deterioration of morality with Facebook or something, as if before we were sitting around having intelligent conversations with each other. I just remember being very bored all the time. But so add me on Facebook, Matt Cordery. I've got the We the Powerful page for the blog that's on Facebook as well. I'm on Twitter. And I've got the blog at wethepowerful.com.au, which is down at the moment for some reason. Came down today, which is generally the way things work, I think. I'm going to try and figure out what's going on. So,
yeah, I noticed that. I was doing a little more research this morning. I was like, wait, what? Website went down. How does that happen?
Today. It was today. So that's the internet. It's a horrible place.
It is yes. It is. Sometimes I read about history and I'm like, how is someone 500 years from now going to explain the internet? Like someone will be a doctor and write a dissertation on Reddit. How do you do that?
How does someone from today explain the internet to someone from 100 years ago? That's what I want to know. Yeah. How would you even do it?
Right. Or like you're in a conversation like with my parents. I'm like, oh, this meme. What? Oh, what? What? What does it mean?
Yeah. I know, like that's one of my pet peeves is people that they talk about the internet like it's and texting and everything. They're like, oh, we never spend enough time talking to each other and stuff. Like 15 years ago, everything was so much harder. Like I talked a little bit more to people, but most of the time I sat and read and watched really, really bad TV. Like we haven't lost that much and we've gained a whole lot. So that's what I think people need to remember.
True. All right. Well, I have had an amazing time. So guys, please go check out Matt's information there on the internet. I'll have all the links in the show notes on the website as well. But I want to say thank you, Matt, for coming on. Enjoy the rest of your evening in lovely Australia.
Thanks for having me, mate.
No problem. Thank you so much.